It had been 10 long years since Alex last heard from Jordan. The phone call came as a shock, a jolt of electricity that ran through his veins, making his heart beat erratically. It was late in the evening, the world outside his small apartment in New York was quiet, save for the faint hum of passing cars and the distant sound of sirens. He was sitting on his couch, staring blankly at the flickering screen of his TV, when the phone rang. He had almost ignored it, another spam call, another attempt to sell him something he didn't need. But then something told him to pick up. "Hello?" Alex answered, his voice groggy from the dull monotony of the day. "Alex," a voice on the other end said. A voice he hadn't heard in a decade. "Jordan?" Alex's breath caught in his throat, disbelief coloring his words. "Is that really you?" There was a pause on the line, the kind of pause that made Alex's skin crawl with unease. "Yes, it's me," Jordan replied, his voice trembling slightly. "I know it's been a long time and I know this probably sounds crazy, but I need you to listen carefully. I'm back. I've returned." Alex sat up straighter, gripping the phone tighter as though it might slip out of his hand at any moment. "Jordan, where the hell have you been? What happened? Everyone thought you were dead." "I thought you were dead." Jordan's voice softened, and there was a deep, almost unbearable sadness in it. I was gone for a long time, Alex. But I'm here now. I've been through something. Something you wouldn't believe." Alex could feel the hair on the back of his neck stand up. There was an urgency in Jordan's voice, a desperation that pulled him in, though his mind was a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief. "What are you talking about? What happened to you? You sound different." "I am different," Jordan admitted, his voice now strained. "I'm not who I was when I left. I don't know how to explain this, but I need you to understand. I'm changing. Every day, little by little. I don't know how much longer I'll look like myself." Alex's stomach churned. He had no idea what was happening, but his friend's words echoed with an eerie finality. Something was wrong, something was horribly wrong. "What do you mean, look like yourself?" Alex asked, though he was afraid of the answer. Are you hurt?" Jordan hesitated before responding, as if trying to find the right words. "It's not exactly that, Alex. It's like I'm becoming something else. Something I can't control. I don't know what it is, but every day my body changes. I can feel it like a fever running through my veins. I don't look like the person I used to be. Hell, I don't even feel like the person I used to be." Alex swallowed hard. "This doesn't make any sense. Where are you? I can help. We can figure this out together." "I don't know how to explain it, man. I don't even know where I am. But I have to tell you something. I'm not just physically changing, Alex. My mind, my memories, my thoughts, they're still mine, but they're starting to fade. I can feel myself slipping away, like I'm losing the grip on who I am, even though I remember everything. I remember you. I remember us." Alex felt a pang of guilt in his chest. 10 years. 10 years since they'd last spoken, since Jordan had just disappeared without a trace. No goodbyes, no explanations, nothing. Alex had tried to move on, tried to forget the days they spent together in high school, the late-night talks, the adventures they had in their small town. But Jordan's disappearance had left a void, one that Alex had buried deep inside himself. Now, that void was coming back with a vengeance. "Jordan, I don't understand. What do you need from me?" Alex asked, his voice trembling. "How can I help?" There was a long silence, and Alex could hear Jordan's labored breathing on the other end. When Jordan finally spoke, his voice was almost a whisper. "Find me, Alex. I need you. Before I become something I can't come back from. You're the only one who can help me. Please." The line went dead before Alex could respond. He stared at the phone in his hand, feeling a mix of confusion, fear, and something darker creeping in, something that made his heart race and his mind spin in circles. The words, "I need you," echoed in his mind as he gripped the phone tighter. He stood up, his legs weak beneath him, his body trembling with a mix of dread and disbelief. Jordan had been missing for a decade, presumed dead by everyone who knew him. But now, after all this time, he was back. Or, at least, he claimed to be. But the voice on the phone, it sounded like Jordan. The urgency in his words, the desperate plea for help, was unmistakable. But something felt off. Something about the way he spoke. His words weren't just desperate, they were haunted. Alex didn't know what to believe, but one thing was clear. He couldn't ignore this. He had to find Jordan. He had to know what had happened to him, what kind of horror he was facing. The apartment was cold, the air thick with tension. Alex's thoughts raced as he grabbed his jacket from the back of the couch and rushed out the door. The city outside was dark, the streets quieter than usual, But Alex couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was waiting for him. As he stepped onto the street, the weight of the unknown settled heavily on his shoulders. His best friend was out there, somewhere, lost to him for 10 years but now, strangely, returned. And Alex had no idea how far down the rabbit hole he was about to fall. The city lights flickered as Alex walked down the dimly lit street, his mind racing with confusion and fear. The air was thick with the humidity of an unusually warm spring evening, but the cold that gripped Alex's chest felt far colder than the temperature outside. His pulse thudded in his ears, his thoughts swirling like a storm. He reached into his pocket, retrieving his phone, but the screen was black. No messages. No new calls. No more clues. His mind replayed Jordan's words over and over again. "I'm changing, Alex. I don't know how much longer I'll look like myself." The phrase echoed in his mind, each repetition a growing knot of unease in his stomach. What did it mean? What was happening to his friend? And why had he come back after all this time? Alex didn't have answers. But something gnawed at him, an instinct telling him that the situation was more than just a strange illness or some kind of mental breakdown. There was something darker at play here, something beyond the physical transformation Jordan had described. And Alex had to find out what it was. He had to help him, even if it meant descending into a world he wasn't prepared to face. The streets of New York seemed unnervingly quiet as Alex walked. The usual hustle and bustle of the city, the constant sound of traffic, voices, footsteps, felt muffled as though the world was holding its breath. He reached the subway station, staring at the glowing sign that indicated the trains were running. It was the fastest way to get anywhere in the city, but as he stepped onto the platform, a sense of dread crept over him. What if Jordan was waiting for him at the other end? What if he'd already changed beyond recognition, beyond help? His heart beat faster at the thought. Alex could feel his mind starting to unravel, the edges of reality beginning to blur. He had always prided himself on being logical, grounded in reason. He'd never been one to indulge in superstition or irrational fears. But now, with the phone call still ringing in his ears and the fear for his friend mounting, he couldn't help but wonder if there was something supernatural at play. What if Jordan was telling the truth? What if he really wasn't the same person anymore? The train screeched to a halt in front of him, and Alex stepped inside, leaning against the pole as the car began to move. He looked around the dimly lit subway, the fluorescent lights flickering intermittently above him. A sense of isolation settled over him. No one else was in the car, save for a few strangers sitting in silence, lost in their own worlds. The quiet only heightened his anxiety, amplifying the nagging feeling that something was terribly wrong. He pulled out his phone again, hoping for another call, another clue. But there was nothing. No sign of Jordan. Alex tried to push away the panic rising in his chest. He couldn't lose control. He had to focus. He had to think. Jordan had said he didn't know where he was. But Alex knew that couldn't be true. If Jordan was back, if he had truly returned from the void in which he'd been lost, he had to be somewhere, even if it was just a few miles away. The city was vast, but it wasn't infinite. Alex had lived here long enough to know its every corner, its every hidden alley and forgotten street. If he searched carefully, he could find him. The train slid to a stop, and Alex's thoughts snapped back to the present. He stood up, stepping off the subway and onto the platform of an unfamiliar station. His eyes scanned the area and his instincts kicked in. Something wasn't right. The station was abandoned, eerily quiet, the usual hum of the trains absent. A chill ran down his spine as he walked toward the exit, his every step echoing off the tiled walls. There was something off about this place. It was too quiet. Too empty. Alex's phone buzzed in his pocket, making him jump. He pulled it out, half expecting another call from Jordan. Instead, it was a text message. From an unknown number. "I'm here. Come alone." The text sent a jolt of panic through Alex. His mind raced as he looked around the station, his eyes searching for any sign of movement, any hint that someone, something, was near. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows at the far end of the platform. A tall, gaunt figure, draped in tattered clothes, its movements jerky and unnatural. Alex's breath caught in his throat as the figure stepped closer, its face obscured by a hood. "Jordan?" Alex called out, his voice trembling. "Is that you?" The figure stopped, its head turning slowly toward him. There was no response, only a long, unsettling silence. Alex's heart pounded in his chest. He took a cautious step forward. "Jordan, please. It's me. Alex." The figure's face remained hidden, but Alex could feel the eyes of the person, or whatever it was, locked onto him. The tension in the air thickened as though time itself had slowed. Alex's mind raced for answers. Could this really be his friend? Was this what he had meant by changing? The figure didn't look like the person he remembered, but then again, how could he? If Jordan had really been through what he said, maybe he had become unrecognizable, twisted by forces beyond understanding. The figure took a step forward, its gait unnatural, as if it was stumbling on uneven ground. Alex's stomach turned as a low, guttural sound escaped from the figure's throat, something between a growl and a gasp. It was a sound that sent a wave of nausea through Alex. "No, this can't be you," Alex whispered, his mind struggling to make sense of what he was seeing. He took a step back, his feet stumbling over the uneven tiles. "What happened to you?" The figure stopped moving. The hooded head tilted to one side, as though it was considering Alex's question. And then, in a voice that was unmistakably Jordan's, though distorted, warped, as if the words had been dragged through an abyss, came the reply. "I told you, Alex. I'm not who I was. But I remember. I remember everything." A chill ran through Alex's body, a cold that had nothing to do with the temperature. He wanted to run to get out of there, but his feet felt frozen to the ground. His mind screamed for him to leave, but his heart refused to let go of the hope that this was still Jordan, still his best friend, somehow trapped in this nightmare. "I need your help," the voice rasped again, this time with a note of pleading. "Please, Alex, help me before it's too late." Alex's mind spun, his thoughts colliding with one another. He couldn't deny the plea in Jordan's voice, even if everything about this moment felt wrong, so fundamentally twisted. He could see the faint glimmer of his friend's eyes beneath the hood, the slight tremble in the figure's movements that hinted at the human inside. But how much of that human remained? Was Jordan still in there? Or had something else already claimed him, body and soul? "Tell me what to do," Alex said, his voice trembling but determined. "I'll do whatever it takes. Just tell me what happened to you." The figure raised a hand, fingers long and thin, reaching toward Alex with a slow, deliberate movement. I can't explain it. It's not something you can understand." The figure's voice cracked. "But there's one thing I know. I'm running out of time. Every day I lose more of myself. And when I'm gone, when I can't hold on any longer, everything I remember, everything I was, will be lost forever." Alex stared at the outstretched hand, fear tightening in his chest. But something deep inside him, something he couldn't name but something that felt like a thread of connection to his lost friend, compelled him to step forward. "I'm not going to let you go, Jordan," Alex said, his voice firm despite the terror clawing at his insides. "I'll find a way to bring you back. We'll figure this out." But even as he spoke the words, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that the world around him had already begun to unravel, and that the truth of what was happening to Jordan might be something far darker, and far more dangerous, than he could have ever imagined. The subway station was silent again, save for the soft echo of Alex's breath. The figure in front of him remained still, unmoving except for the occasional twitch of its fingers. The darkness of the platform seemed to close in around him, swallowing the faint light from the overhead bulbs. The distant hum of the city above felt miles away, and Alex was left alone with his thoughts and his fear. Was this really Jordan standing before him? The voice, twisted and desperate, had called him by name, had begged for help. But this thing in front of him, it was not the friend he remembered. Alex's mind tried to rationalize it, tried to grasp at some shred of reason, but the situation was becoming more surreal with every passing second. "Jordan?" Alex said again, his voice hoarse, unsure. His throat was dry, like he was speaking through a fog. He couldn't stop the words from spilling out, couldn't stop the hope that the person in front of him might somehow return to the man he had known, the man who had once been his best friend. "Is there any part of you left? Any part of the person I knew?" The figure took another small step forward, the movement too jerky, too deliberate. It was as though the body was not fully in control, as though it was struggling against some invisible force that was commanding its every move. "I remember you," came the rasping voice, the words slithering from its throat like a half-formed whisper. "I remember our laughs, our stupid plans. But it's slipping away, Alex. It's all slipping away." A chill settled deeper into Alex's bones, as though the words were an omen. Jordan had always been the strong one, the wild one, the one who made the most out of everything no matter how little they had. And now, this thing in front of him was nothing like the friend he had shared those moments with. "Tell me what's happening," Alex said, trying to steady his voice, trying to regain some sense of control. "How did you end up like this? What is this?" Jordan's head tilted slightly, his expression unreadable beneath the hood, though Alex could feel the weight of his gaze. "I don't know. I woke up in a place that wasn't a place. A void, or maybe something between worlds, where time doesn't work the way it's supposed to. There was a presence there. It spoke to me. Told me things, showed me things, and then it let me go. But not completely. Alex stepped back, his hands clammy. Presence? What kind of presence? You're talking like some ghost story. What the hell are you saying? Jordan's lips trembled, his voice shaking. It wasn't a ghost. It wasn't a spirit. It was something older. Something older than time. It gave me a choice, Alex. He paused as though struggling with the next words. It gave me the choice to return. To come back to the world, to you, but at a cost. The hair on the back of Alex's neck stood up. A cost? What did that mean? His mind reeled. This was insane. This couldn't be real. But the raw pain in Jordan's voice, the anguish in his eyes, made it impossible to dismiss. What cost? Alex's voice cracked as he asked the question. His hands were shaking now and he gripped his phone tightly, wishing, desperately, that he could just have some kind of answer, something solid, something that made sense. Jordan's body shifted again, the movement more pronounced now. It was like a body in motion but somehow disjointed, like a marionette being pulled by strings it couldn't control. I was supposed to be gone, Alex. To be forgotten. But this thing, this entity, it wanted me. It wanted something from me. It told me I had to give it a piece of me. A piece of my soul. Alex's mind was struggling to catch up with the insanity of what he was hearing. He wasn't sure whether to laugh or scream, but all he could manage was a dry, choking laugh that barely escaped his throat. Are you telling me this thing took your soul? Alex finally asked, his voice dripping with disbelief. It didn't take it, not exactly. Jordan's voice was barely above a whisper now, the words catching in his throat. It changed me. It made me what I am now. I'm still me, but I'm becoming something else. Something monstrous. I can feel it, Alex. The hunger. The need. Every day I slip further away. But I'm still here, somewhere deep down. I'm fighting it. I'm trying to fight it. Alex stepped closer, his heart pounding in his chest. So, what do you want me to do? What can I do? I don't understand. You're talking about some kind of demon or whatever, but this isn't you. This isn't the Jordan I remember. I don't know how to explain it, Jordan said, his voice cracking. But you're the only one who can help me. You have to find the place. You have to find where this thing came from, where it trapped me. It's the only way. Alex's brow furrowed. What place? Where? How the hell am I supposed to find something like that? Jordan's hands twitched, his long fingers curling into claws. He seemed to be losing control again, the transformation happening right before Alex's eyes. His skin was paling, and veins seemed to bulge unnaturally beneath his translucent skin. But there was still a flicker of something human, behind his eyes. The place between worlds, Jordan gasped. It's a rift, Alex. A tear in reality. I don't know where it is, but I know you can find it. You're connected to me. I can feel you. We can do this. You just have to trust me. Alex felt a surge of anger and helplessness course through him. He didn't know what to believe anymore. His mind screamed for him to run, to leave and never come back, to forget everything he was hearing. But his heart, the part of him that still wanted to believe in his friend, that refused to let go, kept him rooted to the spot. Tell me how, Alex said, his voice hoarse. Tell me how to find this place. Jordan's gaze darkened and his voice dropped to a whisper. It's not a place anyone can find easily. But there's a key. A symbol. A doorway that opens at the right moment. You'll know it when you see it, I promise. You have to find it before I lose myself completely. Alex looked at his friend, this broken, tortured soul who was begging him for help, and he made a decision. He couldn't leave Jordan to face whatever this was alone. He couldn't just walk away no matter how terrifying or impossible the task seemed. Because in the back of his mind, in the very pit of his stomach, Alex knew that if he didn't help Jordan, he would lose him forever. With trembling hands, Alex pulled out his phone, his fingers hovering over the screen. I'll find it, he whispered, more to himself than to Jordan. I'll find it no matter what. I swear. Jordan's eyes flickered in recognition, and for a moment, there was a spark of the person Alex had known. Then, as if the flicker was all he had left, Jordan gave a small nod. Find the doorway, Alex. It's the only chance we have. Alex stared at the phone screen, his mind whirling. The weight of the promise he had just made settled heavily on his shoulders. The abyss was right in front of him. And whether he wanted to or not, he had just taken the first step into it. The subway station was even quieter than before. The soft hum of the distant city, muffled by the thick concrete and steel, was the only sound that filled Alex's ears. But it didn't bring him comfort. No, it only amplified the unease that gnawed at him from within. He stared at Jordan, or what was left of him, a figure that seemed both familiar and foreign at the same time. The human in him still lingered, buried beneath layers of something monstrous, something dark. Alex's phone vibrated in his hand, breaking his trance. He jumped, his grip tightening on the phone. His eyes flickered to the screen. A message from an unknown number. Don't go alone. It was the second message from the same mysterious number, the one he had received earlier. It didn't say much, but the warning was clear. Someone, or something, knew what was happening, and they didn't want him to walk this path without caution. He wanted to scream. He wanted to demand answers. But a part of him knew that now wasn't the time for questions. Now was the time for action. Jordan, Alex whispered, his voice breaking the silence. You said there's a way to find this rift, this doorway. But how? Where do I even start? Jordan's eyes, those eyes once so full of life, now looked tired, filled with a resignation Alex hadn't seen in his friend in years. He had been through too much, and Alex could see it in the way he was beginning to unravel little by little. But there was still something in him that clung to life, to humanity. It's not simple, Jordan rasped, his voice lower now, almost distant. I didn't understand it at first. But after the entity, it left me with clues. Fragments of memory. Places that are important. The rift doesn't just open anywhere. It needs something to activate it. Something that's connected to both the physical world and the other side. Alex clenched his fists. Like what? A person? An object? Jordan nodded slowly, his fingers twitching again, the twitching almost frantic now. A symbol, he said. It's something ancient. Something that's been forgotten, hidden in plain sight. You need to find it. A chill ran down Alex's spine. A symbol. Something hidden in plain sight. It sounded impossible. It sounded like a riddle. But there was no time to waste, no time to argue. Alex had to move. He had to act. Where do I find this symbol? Alex asked, forcing the words out, though his mind was spinning with doubt. Jordan's expression shifted, and his voice grew more strained. It's in a place that shouldn't exist. A forgotten part of this city. A place where time and space bend. It's where I first encountered the entity. The rift. I don't know how to explain it, but it's in the tunnels beneath the city. Alex blinked, processing the words slowly. Tunnels? You mean like the old subway tunnels? Jordan nodded again, his eyes widening with a hint of panic. Yes, the abandoned ones. No one goes there anymore. It's dangerous, but that's where you'll find it. But you need to be careful, Alex. The rift is not something that can be easily understood. It has its own rules, its own logic. And once you're inside, time doesn't work the same way. Alex felt his stomach tighten. Time didn't work the same way? What did that mean? He didn't have time to consider it. He had a mission now, and Jordan's words rang in his ears like a warning bell. He couldn't turn back. I'll go, Alex said, his voice resolute. He didn't even know where to start, but something in his gut told him that he had to find those tunnels. Whatever this entity was, whatever had happened to Jordan, he had to face it. Jordan's face twisted in pain, his hands clawing at the air as though grasping for something just out of reach. Be careful, he whispered. You don't know what you'll face in there. It's not just a place. It's a door, Alex. A door to something else. And once it opens, you might not be able to close it again. Alex didn't answer. He couldn't. His mind was already racing with plans, with questions. He could feel the pressure mounting in his chest, the weight of the unknown pressing down on him. But it wasn't fear that drove him. It was something else, a deep sense of duty. If Jordan was still in there, buried beneath whatever had changed him, Alex wasn't about to let him slip away. With one last glance at his friend, Alex turned and walked towards the exit. He didn't know if he was walking into a trap. He didn't know if he was about to plunge into madness or death. But the thought of losing Jordan again, that was something he couldn't bear. The streets of New York felt strangely hollow as Alex made his way through the city, the familiar skyline seeming distant, like a painting from which he had been removed. The lights glowed with a disjointed hum, the usual rush of people and traffic now non-existent. It was like he was moving through a world that wasn't quite his own, like the edges of reality were beginning to warp and blur. It was as if Jordan's words, the warnings of a rift in time and space, were beginning to seep into the fabric of the world around him. He walked faster, his mind focused on the task ahead. He had no map, no guide. Only the vague direction Jordan had given him, the abandoned tunnels beneath the city. He reached the edge of the neighborhood, the area where the streets started to fade into industrial zones. The farther he walked, the fewer people he saw. The streets grew darker, quieter. Old factories loomed on either side, their windows cracked and boarded up. The smell of rust and decay hung in the air. This was the part of the city that people avoided, the forgotten, the neglected, where shadows seemed to stretch longer and darker. Alex turned a corner and found an old, rusted gate blocking his path. A sign, faded and barely legible, read "Danger, Restricted Area." His heart began to pound as he approached. This was it. He was getting closer. He pushed the gate open with a loud creak, and the sound seemed to echo for miles, an unsettling reminder of how alone he was. The air grew colder as he descended into the depths of the city. The pavement turned to gravel beneath his feet, and the flickering light from a single overhead bulb barely illuminated the path ahead. The further he went, the darker it became. He reached the entrance to a narrow tunnel, its walls lined with broken tiles, the air damp and musty. Alex hesitated for a moment, his breath shallow, but then he stepped forward. He had no choice. The rift, whatever it was somewhere down here. And if he had any hope of saving his friend, this was the only place he could find it. The tunnel stretched endlessly in front of him, its walls narrowing as he walked deeper. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end, and every footstep echoed in the narrow space. He kept walking, driven by a mixture of fear, confusion, and something else. Something darker that began to creep into his heart as the tunnel grew colder, deeper. Then he heard it. A low, guttural sound, a rumble like something massive was shifting in the distance. Alex froze. His heart skipped a beat. The sound was unmistakable. It was a growl, a sound that no human could make. He pulled his jacket tighter around himself, his breath coming in quick bursts. Whatever was down here, whatever he was about to face, it wasn't just a symbol or a doorway. It was something far worse, something alive. The growl grew louder. Closer. Alex's mind raced. Was this it? Was this the thing that had taken Jordan, that had twisted his friend into something unrecognizable? It wasn't just a force in the shadows. It was here. And it was waiting for him. Stay focused, Alex muttered to himself. You have to do this. He took a deep breath and forced himself to keep moving forward, despite the terror gnawing at his insides. The tunnel stretched ahead, seemingly endless, but Alex's resolve held firm. He had to face whatever lay at the end of this dark, twisted road. Because if he didn't stop the entity, it would consume everything. The growl reverberated through the tunnel, a sound that seemed to shake the very walls around Alex. His body froze for a split second, a sharp pang of fear coursing through him. He knew without a doubt that this was no ordinary noise. It wasn't just the wind, or some animal rummaging in the darkness. It was something else, something primal and dangerous, something that had been waiting for him. Alex took a shallow breath, his chest tightening as the growl echoed again, louder now, closer. It felt like the very tunnel itself was alive, watching, waiting for him to make his next move. The dim light from the overhead bulbs flickered, casting long, wavering shadows that seemed to stretch and twist unnaturally, as if the darkness itself was trying to reach out and grab him. He had no choice. He couldn't turn back. Not now. With his heart hammering in his chest, Alex gripped the flashlight tighter, the beam of light cutting through the thickening darkness in front of him. His mind raced with the words Jordan had said, the symbol, the doorway, the rift, and yet, as the sounds of movement grew nearer, it was hard to remember what exactly he was looking for. What did a doorway to another world look like? Was it a crack in the wall, a hidden mark on the floor, or something else entirely? The growling sound echoed again, now a series of low, rumbling noises that seemed to come from deep within the earth itself. Alex's senses were on high alert. His eyes darted around the tunnel, trying to find something, anything, that might give him a clue about what to do next. The walls, once familiar with their worn tiles and cracked pipes, now seemed to shift and pulse with a life of their own, warping in ways that Alex couldn't comprehend. The tunnel didn't feel like it belonged to the real world anymore. It felt like it was part of something else, a place that existed between spaces, outside of time and reason. He took a step forward, his boots crunching on the gravel beneath him. Another growl, this time much closer, and Alex felt the hair on the back of his neck stand on end. The sound wasn't just coming from the distance anymore. It was surrounding him. He wasn't alone in this tunnel. Whatever was out there, it was hunting him. His mind flashed to Jordan, his friend, lost to whatever this entity was. He could still hear the desperation in Jordan's voice, see the pain in his eyes as he begged Alex to find the rift before it was too late. The rift. The doorway. Find it. Alex pushed forward, his breath shallow, his thoughts a jumble of fear and resolve. He had to find it. He had to stop whatever was happening to Jordan before it spread further. The growl came again, louder now, just behind him. But when he whipped around, the tunnel was empty, eerily quiet. A shiver ran down his spine as the sound of his own heartbeat seemed to fill the air. He was on edge, every little noise amplified in the oppressive silence. His mind was playing tricks on him. He knew that, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking just out of sight, watching him, waiting for the right moment to strike. Suddenly, the flashlight flickered, casting the tunnel into darkness for a brief moment. Alex cursed under his breath, fumbling with the flashlight, his fingers trembling as he tried to steady it. The beam of light sputtered back to life, but the beam now illuminated something that hadn't been there before, a strange symbol carved into the wall of the tunnel. Alex's breath caught in his throat. The symbol was faint, etched deeply into the stone like it had been there for centuries, its edges worn and weathered by time. The lines of the symbol twisted and spiraled into a shape that seemed almost familiar, yet completely alien. It was as if the mark had been made by something both ancient and otherworldly, its design too perfect to have been made by human hands. He stepped closer, his heart racing. The symbol pulsed with a faint, eerie glow, the lines of it shimmering in the darkness. Alex could feel the air grow colder as he reached out a hand, his fingers hovering just above the engraving. There was a hum in the air, a strange energy that seemed to vibrate through the ground and into his bones. "This is it," Alex whispered to himself. "This is the doorway." Without thinking, his hand pressed against the symbol. The moment his fingers made contact with the cold stone, the ground beneath him trembled. The air crackled with an unnatural energy. Alex stumbled backward, his heart leaping into his throat as the walls around him began to shift and distort. The symbol in the wall glowed brighter, its lines pulsing with an almost lifelike rhythm. The growl came again, louder, closer, almost deafening now. But this time it wasn't the growl of a creature. It was the sound of something far worse, a sound that resonated deep within his chest, as if the very fabric of reality was being torn apart. The tunnel around him seemed to warp, bending and twisting as the walls cracked open, revealing a vast, otherworldly void beyond. It was like looking through a shattered mirror, the pieces reflecting something that wasn't supposed to exist, dark, swirling shapes that seemed to pulse with an ominous light. Alex gasped, stumbling back, but the space around him seemed to draw him in, the air thick with an overpowering presence. The rift had opened. The doorway to another world, another reality, had been unlocked. And something was coming through. Before he could react, the air shifted, heavy with the scent of decay and rot. A shape moved in the shadows beyond the rift. Something tall, something massive, its form obscured by the swirling darkness. Alex could hear its breath, ragged and deep, as it stepped forward, its presence filling the tunnel. Alex's blood ran cold. He wanted to move, to run, but his legs felt like they were glued to the ground. His mind screamed for him to flee, but he couldn't tear his eyes away from the entity that was emerging from the rift. It was humanoid in shape, but its features were twisted, like something pulled from a nightmare. Its skin was pale and stretched tight, its limbs long and unnaturally thin, like they had been elongated by some cruel force. Its face, if it could be called a face, was a mass of shadows and twisted features, its eyes glowing with a sickly yellow light. A twisted, gaping maw hung open in its face, revealing sharp, jagged teeth that glistened with some dark fluid. The growl intensified, but now it was joined by a terrible screech, a sound that made Alex's ears ring, his vision blur with panic. The creature reached out with long, clawed hands, its fingers stretching impossibly long, its movements erratic, like a predator closing in on its prey. "Jordan?" Alex whispered, his voice trembling, barely audible over the creature's screech. He had to save him. He had to stop whatever this was. But how? The creature's gaze locked onto him, its eyes narrowing in on his figure. The air around Alex seemed to grow heavier, thicker, as if the very atmosphere was closing in around him. His chest tightened. His thoughts raced, but there was no clear solution, no clear way out. The rift had opened and the creature was here. And it was coming for him. The world around Alex seemed to fall away, swallowed by the sheer weight of the creature's presence. The air was thick with a suffocating heat, and the very ground beneath his feet felt unstable, as if reality itself were crumbling into dust. The creature loomed before him, its glowing yellow eyes boring into his soul, and the screeching, guttural growl reverberated in his skull. It was the sound of something ancient, something that had never belonged to this world. For a brief moment, Alex felt time slow, as if the universe had paused, waiting for him to make a choice. His mind raced with memories, his childhood with Jordan, their friendship, the laughter they once shared. Jordan's desperate plea echoed in his ears, urging him to stop the rift, to stop this entity from spilling into their world. But how? How could he stop something so powerful, something so far beyond his understanding? The creature's long fingers reached toward him, its claws twitching, eager. Alex's heart hammered in his chest as he took a step back, but his feet felt as though they were sinking into the earth. The ground was trembling, vibrating under his weight, as though the world itself was about to collapse. The symbol on the wall still pulsed with an eerie glow, its power drawing the creature closer. He could see Jordan's face in his mind, his friend lost to the entity, his body twisted and corrupted by its influence. But there was a flicker of humanity still in those eyes, the person Alex had once known, the person he still loved like a brother. Alex clenched his fists. He couldn't let it end like this. He couldn't let the creature destroy everything they had ever known. But what choice did he have? He was no hero. He was just a man, lost in a city that had become a nightmare. And yet, somehow, a spark of defiance burned in his chest. A whisper of hope, buried deep, rose to the surface. There's always a choice. A voice, quiet but firm, echoed in his mind. It wasn't Jordan's voice. It wasn't even his own. It was something ancient, something far older than anything Alex could comprehend. It was the voice of the rift itself, the entity that had tried to tear the fabric of reality apart. Alex's breath caught in his throat as the creature stepped forward, its form growing larger with every movement. The rift swirled behind it, a gaping abyss that threatened to consume everything. But something inside Alex clicked. A realization, a decision that he didn't even know he had made. He reached into his pocket, his hand trembling, and pulled out the small worn notebook he had carried with him since his youth. It was a notebook that had once belonged to his father, filled with strange symbols, cryptic writings, and diagrams that Alex had never fully understood. The pages were yellowed with age, the ink faded, but one page stood out to him, the very symbol that had appeared on the wall. His father's notes had always been strange, filled with references to ancient forces, hidden dimensions, and the rift between worlds. Alex had dismissed it as madness when he was younger, but now, standing at the edge of the abyss, he understood. The notebook held the key. With shaking hands he opened the page, staring at the symbol. He didn't know how or why, but something in him recognized it. It was a sigil, a seal that could bind the rift, close the doorway, and prevent the entity from breaking through. The creature screeched again, louder this time, a shrill noise that made Alex's skin crawl. But he wasn't afraid. Not anymore. He pressed the pages of the notebook against the wall, directly over the glowing symbol. The moment the paper touched the stone, a surge of energy pulsed through him, overwhelming in its intensity. His vision blurred, and for a fleeting moment, he felt as if he were being pulled apart, as though his body was being torn between two realities. The rift roared, its energy swirling violently, the entity shrieking in fury. But Alex held firm, pressing the notebook tighter against the symbol. He could feel the connection, the strange power coursing through him, through the paper, through the walls of the tunnel. With a final desperate cry, the creature lunged at him, its claws inches from his face. But before it could make contact, the tunnel around them exploded in a flash of light, blinding and intense. And then, silence. When Alex opened his eyes, he was no longer in the tunnel. The oppressive darkness had lifted, replaced by the soft glow of daylight streaming through a crack in the walls. He was standing in an abandoned building, his feet firmly planted on the ground. The tunnel, the creature, the rift, it was all gone as if it had never existed. His breath came in shallow gasps as he looked around, disoriented. The pain in his chest had subsided, but the lingering sense of dread gnawed at him. He wanted to believe it was over, that everything was normal again, but something inside him told him that the battle wasn't finished. The rift had been sealed, but the darkness still lingered on the edges of his mind. And then, in the corner of his vision, he saw something that made his heart skip a beat. A figure standing by the window, silhouetted against the light. It was Jordan. But it wasn't the same Jordan Alex had known. His friend was standing still, his back to Alex, staring out at the city below. There was something off about him, a heaviness to his posture, a stillness in his form that spoke volumes. It was as if the creature had never truly left him. His figure seemed to flicker, like a reflection in a broken mirror. "Jordan?" Alex whispered, taking a hesitant step forward. The figure didn't turn. Instead, Jordan's voice, quiet and hollow, drifted to Alex's ears. "You did it, Alex. You stopped it." But the words felt empty, like a distant echo. There was no warmth, no joy. Only an endless silence. Alex's heart ached as he reached out, but before he could say anything more, Jordan's figure dissolved into the air, vanishing like smoke. Alex stood frozen, staring at the empty space where his friend had once been. The rift had been closed, but at what cost? Jordan was gone, lost forever, a casualty of the forces that had torn through their world. In that moment, Alex realized the true weight of the choice he had made. The rift had been sealed, but some things, some connections could never truly be mended. The shadows that lingered beneath the surface were not easily forgotten. Alex closed his eyes, his mind heavy with the knowledge that some doors were never meant to be opened. As the sun set over the city, casting long shadows on the streets, Alex walked away, knowing that he had done what he had to do. The world would continue as it always had, but for Alex, nothing would ever be the same again. And so ends the story of the rift that almost tore the world apart. A tale of friendship, loss, and the darkness that lies beneath the surface of reality. But remember, dear reader, this is just a story, a work of fiction. It is not real.